Hello, everybody. I'm Danger Gen Vex, and welcome to another episode of
Really Random!
I want to thank everybody so much who left me nouns in the comments of last week's video and on Facebook and Twitter. It was a lot of fun. I took all of the nouns, stuck them in a random, selector, and it spat out 3 finalists. These finalists were village, pollution, and popcorn. So I took these random words and these random nouns, and I put them in our random topics generator, and these were the results. Now, after we'd gotten the results, I put them on Twitter and I asked you guys to vote for which one you wanted me to talk about. And the winner was I actually, to be honest, I expected, something like the popcorn one to win. I was a little afraid that the village topic might win, because not only would that really have been random, but I would have had no idea what to say. But yeah, the pollution one won. And the pollution won, and I was a little surprised by that. But I wasn't just going to cop out, and I decided to rise to the challenge, and I had to do a bit of research because it's not exactly my strong point. I do have a best friend who works in the local municipality and with the government around environmental issues, but personally, I'm not that aware. I know there's problems and similar, but I don't actually know that much about it. But I did a bit of research. I think I found 20 good myths to talk about. And yeah, let's count them down. Number 1. All pollution is the dumping of physical stuff into the environment. Actually, no. I'm just going to mention 2 types of pollution that don't really involve the dumping of stuff. The first one is noise pollution. And if you're not sure what noise pollution is when you switch on your Xbox in the middle of the night and play the volume loud enough so that everybody in the neighborhood can hear how much you suck at Overwatch. Actually, noise pollution it's the sound of cars driving around at night and airplanes, flying over your house the whole day, and, construction work, etc., etc. There's so much noise going on around us all the time that it has a physical effect on the human body. Some of the effects include stress, and you've got heart diseases, hearing loss, blood pressure problems. There are a lot of things caused by noise pollution because, believe it or not, you do need a little bit of silence in your life. The other type of pollution is light pollution. Now, if you don't know what light pollution is, it's if you go outside right now and you look up at the sky and you see nothing, as opposed to when you go outside in the country and you look up and you go, oh my God, the stars are not a lie. That's light pollution that causes that difference, because there are so many lights around you all the time that it actually makes, it pollutes the night. The night isn't as dark as it should be. Now, this doesn't affect humans that negatively, not directly anyway, but it does affect a lot of birds. They can't differentiate between night and day. They struggle to do that. It changes their migratory patterns. So it might not affect us so much, but it definitely has an impact on the environment. Number 2, companies, industries, and governments are our biggest polluters. Have you got a driver's license? Have you got a car? Then you are responsible for some of the worst air pollution that we currently have. Now, if you drive a classic car with the original plumbing, you are also about 38 times more responsible than the rest of us. also, there were tests done on how much pollution, certain cars do. And if you drive a Mitsubishi or a Chrysler, you are still more responsible than the rest of us. The most eco-friendly cars, according to that study, are actually BMWs. Now, only some of the countries that are your really bad polluters in this regard are it's China, the United States, Japan, Canada, the UK, Iran, South Korea, and there are a couple more, but those are our biggest polluters, from vehicles. Now, I know a lot of people go, yeah, but China, all the coal burning that they have, that must be the biggest, problem. No. And it's in most places of the world, it is the car pollution, the car exhaust fumes that causes the most air pollution. And considering that, experts say that the amount of cars on the roads are going to skyrocket in the next few years, we've got problems. Number 3. Hey, at least the car pollution can't get me while I'm driving in my car. There's something you should know. When you're driving in big cities and you're stuck in traffic, bumper to bumper, and all of that exhaust is being generated around you, well, it kind of seeps into the car, and the air pollution in your car can get 10 times worse than the air pollution outside of your car. So it's actually safer for you to just not drive. Number 4. There are giant floating islands of plastic in every ocean. This is something that I also believed until not too long ago. The thing is, they aren't actually, the plastics in the oceans, only a small portion of it float to the surface. Most of the plastics actually sink down into the ocean and down to the ocean floor, where marine life eats the plastic or it gets stuck around them. The amount of plastic on the surface is only a very, very small fraction, and it's usually particles that are a lot smaller than the pieces that drift down. So, yeah, there's a lot of garbage floating out in the ocean, but they're not exactly islands of floating garbage. Number 5. Pollution only affects the areas and/or countries where it's created. If only. Pollution actually affects the world on a much larger scale. As an example, pollution that is created in China actually affects the west coast of the United States on a pretty large level. Almost a third of the air pollution in San Francisco comes from China, and the snowfall is increased in California because of, the pollution in China as well. So basically, you can't affect one part of the ecosystem and not affect another part of it. That is why it's called an ecosystem. Number 6. Pesticides are the biggest pollutant when it comes to pollution created by farms. Interesting fact. A lot of the pollution that comes from farms, although yes, pesticides are a problem, a lot of the pollution actually come from the livestock, and a lot of the most dangerous pollution come from the livestock. You've got your cows and your sheep and your pigs, their manure and their crap and the bacteria from them gets washed away by the rain, and they get washed into rivers and lakes and, into the ground, and it's seeping into the groundwater. And the dangerous bacteria actually cause a crap load of the diseases that we deal with. So that new plague that you caught that's making you crap out your stomach for an hour every day, yeah, the pigs caused that. Number 7. Farms and companies are to blame for the worst of the chemical pollution affecting us through the use of chemicals or pesticides. On a bigger scale, probably yes. Actually, house owners use chemicals that are 10 times more lethal by acre than a lot of the farms and the companies use. So, yeah, you're kind of poisoning yourself. Number 8. We need all the pesticides that we use on farms. The pros far outweigh the cons. They're worth it. You might not know this, but recent tests have shown that there are up to 73 different kinds of pesticides in our drinking water, the groundwater. You know, the water that we consume every day, the water that's tasting funnier and funnier every time you drink from it, that water. So, just to put it in perspective for you, there are over 1 billion people in the world. That's a seventh of the eighth of our current population that don't have access to clean drinking water. And it's only getting worse. Interesting fact, there have been, studies and arguments made for swapping out crops. So a lot of pesticides can be avoided just by swapping out crops. So you've got two farmers, this guy plants corn, this guy plants whatever else, and they just swap every year so that they never plant the same thing 2 years in a row. And by doing that, we can actually avoid using a lot of the pesticides that are causing problem for us today. The reason we're probably not doing that is because people want what people want. If I have a steady supply of corn on the cob, I want my steady supply of corn on the cob or popcorn or whatever. I don't want to have to sacrifice this year. Even if there are guys swapping out, I don't want to have to possibly sacrifice this year, even if it means that I get to live a healthier life. So it's basically people screwing people over, us screwing ourselves over again. Number 9. Oil spills are the biggest, main, or only culprits responsible for oil pollution in our oceans. No, they're not the only culprits. In fact, they're not even the biggest culprits. The biggest culprit when it comes to spilling oil into the ocean is cars. Again, leaking cars. In fact, I found a research note that said that cars leak more oil into the ocean. And I know that sounds strange. I mean, your car's on the road and the oceans are way over there. Rain, washing, oil, etc. into water, remember? So more oil from leaking cars makes its way into the ocean every year than was spilled by the company Exxon Valdez in 1989. And just to put it in perspective for you, the spill caused by Exxon Valdez resulted in the contamination of I think it was 1,300 miles or 2,092 kilometers of coastline. And over 500,000 animals paid the price for it. That's that spill. Okay? We are spilling more and more. There are more and more cars on the road every day, and they're still leaking oil all over the place, and all of that is making its way into the ocean. It's not going to get any better if this is what we do. Number 10. Pollution kills, or it makes you sick. And that's the extent of it. Not even taking into consideration the effects on the environment, the pollution, especially, pollution of water, is having, effects all over the place and on various different animals, people, and ecosystems. An interesting one for you is that it was recently discovered that about a third of the fish in British rivers are changing from male to female because of chemicals, and not even, really pronounced chemicals. Just, you drink, your contraceptives and you go to the bathroom and, it does get excreted out and goes into the water. And these hormonal pills and, all of these different chemicals, they're actually causing the fish to change gender. Now, how long do you think it's going to take before that starts impacting the breeding habits of those fish? And by logical extension, the rest of the ecosystem. Number 11. The caps are melting, and that's the biggest threat to our oceans when it comes to pollution. According to research that I found, the biggest worry for people is the acidification of the ocean, actually. And the pH levels are dropping, oceans getting more and more acidic, acid rain, all those problems, and it's affecting marine life very negatively. Not to mention the amount of plastics, as I said, that gets dumped into the ocean every day. So no, the caps might be melting from greenhouse emissions, but that is a much slower process than the rising levels of acid in our water. Number 12. The polluting of the ocean happens out on the ocean. Okay, I think we've pretty much covered this one already. You don't need to be on the ocean to be polluting the ocean. Most rivers and waterways find a way down to the ocean eventually. Just to give you an example, the Mississippi River carries about 1.5 million metric tons of nitrogen pollution down to the ocean every year. It's so bad that it's created a dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico that's the size of New Jersey. Number 13. Oh gods, save the ozone! Save the right fucking ozone, okay? The ozone layer that's way up there and protects us from the sun, yes, protect that ozone. We want it to remain intact and to protect us, from the sun's rays. And on an interesting note, there are still seasonal holes in the ozone. It's a seasonal thing. It happens every year. It opens, it closes, it opens, it closes. Anyway, or it thins and closes. Anyway, ozone at our level, here where we can breathe it in, that is not a good thing. In fact, that's a very bad thing. That's a poisonous thing. That's a potentially lethal thing. So please, if you have to save the ozone, save the one that matters. Number 14. Aside from oil spills, oil transportation is perfectly safe. Actually, for about every million tons of oil that is shipped, a ton of oil is spilled. Now, I know that doesn't sound like much, but take into consideration how much oil is transported across the globe every day. There's a lot of oil being spilled into the oceans, and that ton has nothing to do with accidents. That just happens. So, yeah, there's just no safe way to transport oil from point A to point B. There will always be pollution. If you want to stop oil pollution, stop the need for oil. Number 15. Air pollution might be bad, but it's still not as bad as smoking. If you live in Beijing and you're breathing that air, you're basically smoking 21 cigarettes a day. And if you live in Mumbai in India, you're smoking 100 cigarettes a day. You're a chain smoker. You're screwed. So basically, light 'em if you got 'em. Number 16. Okay, pollution kills, but it can't be responsible for that many deaths. Actually, 1 in every 8 deaths can be linked in some way to air pollution. At least that's what the studies say. Okay, and that's just air pollution. We're not talking about water pollution or, fires and the rest of the stuff. When it comes to water pollution, estimates say that a child dies every 8 seconds from oil pollution. And another study that I found said that every 4 hours, water pollution kills the equivalent of a Boeing airplane filled to the brim with children. Every 4 hours. So, there's a lot of deaths linked to pollution. We just, blind ourselves to it. We put on blinders and we don't give a damn. Air pollution is the fourth highest risk to our health ranked at the moment. So take off your bloody blinders and see the truth. Number 17. Humans can't be directly affected by plastic pollution in water. We'd know if we swallowed plastic. Okay, so some of you might know that plastic takes over 500 years to break down. Okay, so basically every piece of plastic that has ever been made still exists in some form or another. Now, when it comes to plastic pollution in our water and in our drinking water, the plastic tends to break down to very small particles. It doesn't break down completely, but it does break down smaller. And a lot of these particles can be, really, really small. You can't see them. They're microscopic. And they do make it into our drinking water. Tests have actually shown that there are large amounts of plastics in our drinking water, and that just in America, 93% of Americans have plastic chemicals in their body from contaminated water. And that's not even the rest of the world. So no, you won't always know if there's plastic in your water. And yes, plastic pollution will affect you directly. Number 18. The only illnesses that pollution can cause are cancer or linked to respiratory problems. 1. Air pollution can increase weight gain. It leads to inflammation around your organs, and it makes you struggle to burn energy, etc., etc. So no matter how hard you diet, you are still going to end up overweight. 2. It can make you diabetic. It makes your body struggle to process insulin, so diabetes. 3. It can make you suicidal. This isn't my opinion. This is what the researchers and the professionals say. 4, and a personal favorite of mine, pollution can cause your brain to shrink. It makes you stupid. So the more you pollute, the dumber you get. The more you pollute, the less you listen, the dumber you get. Explains a lot. Number 19. Okay, so we're screwed. There are no clean places left on Earth. Now, we're not completely screwed. If you can brave the weather, you can go and live on Antarctica. There are actually clean air pacts and, environmental protection acts that protect the Antarctic. So go and build yourself a nice igloo, and unless your house melts down from under you, you should be fine. Number 20. Recycling and Clean Air Acts don't do diddly squat. Just do away with the programs and save the money. We're doomed anyway. Landfills are one of the biggest, if not the biggest, culprit of soil contamination that we have today. And interesting thing is, 80% of those landfills can actually be recycled. Composting and recycling alone have prevented 85 million tons of waste to be dumped. So it can make a difference if we just do more of it. Don't do less, don't take away the funding, do more, and you might actually start to see a noticeable difference. And there have actually been noticeable differences. In 2010, a study was done to see what kind of effect the 1990 Clean Air Pact or Clean Air Act actually had. And I mention this now because I know there are talks and rumors going around that I think it's the US might be doing away with their Clean Air Act. Anyway, the study found that about 160,000 deaths were prevented by the Clean Air Act, and I think it's 13 million work days weren't lost. So people who had to skip work because of pollution related problems, 13 million of those work days were saved. So yeah, it does make a difference. It makes a difference to the economy. It makes a difference to the population, to our health. Just for these kinds of acts and for recycling and any kind of environmental protection to have an effect, we actually need to participate. We need to do something about it. Or it's like saying that tomorrow I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna get fit and just never going. Saying something and doing something are very different things. And then you can say, I'm paying for a gym membership, but it's not worth the money because I'm not losing any weight. If you don't go to the gym, then that is wasted money. And if we don't try and make these programs work, then saying that we are going to have these programs don't mean anything. But that doesn't mean that they can't make a difference. Bonus fact for you guys. After humanity completely screws itself over and we kill everything on the planet because we can't breathe and we can't live with our acidic oceans and our acidic soil and our horrible air, and a species that's currently in existence will arise and become the new dominant life form on Earth. Which species, you may ask? Well, it's this guy, the naked mole rat. Naked mole rats are pretty much like superheroes of our current environment. They don't get cancer. Their nose and their mouths aren't affected by all the acid that we're dumping into the soil. They live 6 times longer than most rodents. They hardly age. They survive for long periods of time without oxygen, and they can live with all the heavy metal pollution that's going on. So basically, man destroys man, naked mole rat inherits the earth. Anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode of Really Random. It was very enlightening for me, and there were a lot of things that I didn't know myself. But, let me know your thoughts down in the bottom, not just, on the different myths that I mentioned, but, your thoughts on pollution and protecting the environment and how you feel about it. And while you do that, leave me 3 more nouns for next week, and you might see them in a really random episode. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a like down below, and I will see you next time. Bye!